Now, welcome along to what is a very special edition of the Champion Sports Chat podcast. We're here in the famed hurling nursery of St Flannans, where hopefully on Saturday evening and well into Monday or Tuesday, there'll be a hearty party underway as they look to bridge that gap back to 205 when they take on CBC of Cork down in Mallow. To look ahead to that game, we've gathered some of the big names that have been involved in St Flannans down throughout the years. To my left, or your right as you're looking at it there, is John Minogue, a man that knows plenty about winning Harty Cup titles as a manager. A man to my right and your left is Jamesie O'Connor, knows all about winning All-Irelands and Harty Cup titles as well. And a man that knows plenty about everything is Mr. Joe Cahill from Corofin, whose son Diarmuid, of course, will be landing out in that game on Saturday. Lads, thanks for coming along here. It's obviously, John, I'll start with yourself, a big occasion. I know we spoke in the paper, and I mean, even just, you mentioned that the big health and safety risk around St Flannans recently is not falling over hurleys. When we pulled up outside here, every second young fella that came out of the school had a hurley in his hand. I mean, that's, I suppose, what it's all about, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is. I mean, it brings its own energy to the place. This has been building up for a number of weeks now since, you know, the teams got going. Maybe taking off a little bit slowly, but in the last two games, they really, I think, have improved a huge amount. And I think their second half display the last day was a truly great. You know, battling, taking on the opposition, playing down in Nina and that. And I think they did very, very well. And a couple of the guys stood up, like Galvin and Butler and these guys, they stood up, and the little man from Corofin, whose father is here with us, who inspires everybody, I suppose, with how well he plays. So it's great, like, and it brings in, I suppose, like when we were back, like when Mike McInerney and myself were involved in Seamus Gardner and all of these, we had lots of lads from Tipperary and Limerick and Galway, Gantleys and all of these guys. You know, they made up the majority of the teams, I suppose, nearly of the players and the teams that won Harty Cups to a large extent. But now it's very much a Clare-based and local clubs, and it's great to see that, like in the local area, that the talent is coming from Corofin, it's coming from Quinn, it's coming from you know, out the Tulla area, out that area, and it looks good, you know, and it doesn't look, it looks great, like it's for the future of Clare hurling. And all of these guys, like, are in the same school. There's a huge following among the whole school. You know, all of the people, the students, the teachers, everybody involved, the caretaker, everybody is involved in this, and it's brought a great sense of coming together again after a lapse of a number of years, you know, because there's a generation gone by that never saw this, you know, whereas other generations had it every second year or every third year or sometimes 2 or 3 years in a row. And I think, you know, this is great to have it back in again. It brings that energy. Mm-hmm.
We mentioned there at the start, from a managerial perspective, you've got plenty of Harty Cup titles on the CV. Take us back, I mean, your first involvement here in St Flannans, as the fella says, it wasn't today or yesterday you came through the door.
Well, I mean, when you came into St Flannans, when I came into St Flannans, which is a long time ago, it's back 1982 or 83, you served your apprenticeship under, I suppose, two of the great managers and most successful managers of Harty Cup, Father Seamus Gardner being one, and Father Willie Walsh. Yeah. And they were the Alex Fergusons, or whoever you wanted to be, the Jack Charltons of whatever, you know. They laid down, well, they didn't lay down the law, but they set the thing, and you know, and everybody wanted, who had a hurley, whether they were good or bad, they wanted a trial at least for a Harty Cup, and they got out there, and there was great competition. There was a great mix then, you see. If you look at the present team, it's very much an all-Clare team, but then you had the Limerick lads, the Galway lads, as I've said, and that brought its own energy and everything, and a bit of rivalry. And I mean, the likes of Turlock Herbert and these lads from Limerick, when they came out and started playing Harty hurling here, they brought a steel to it, I think, that helped Clare hurling as well, because I think they played maybe a little bit of a tougher brand of hurling, and that helped, I think, when to help the Clare lads who were around the team to, you know, to see that you could play a little bit tougher, but you could be fair as well, and that I thought brought a lot of success.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, you had Seamus Gardner wasn't going to take anything easy when you know, he wanted to win, and so did Bill Walsh. So they were they set out their stall and they were successful.
Yeah.
Didn't win everything, but they were very successful.
Absolutely. And James, as you mentioned, 2 Harty Cup titles for yourself. You've spent a large number of years now in St Flannans between being a student and a teacher as well. So you would have tracked that dynamic, I guess, that John just spoke of playing with Limerick and Tip lads and now seeing the current crop as from an outside perspective as just the All Clare group. That dynamic, has it changed that much?
Well, I suppose, look, at the reality is, there's a huge change from, I came in here in 85, I suppose, as a student, and, I think we were beaten early my first year, but in 87, there was probably, arguably, the greatest Flannans Harty team of all time. John mentioned Turlock Herbert was on it, Dalo was cornerback. It was littered with, Beefy Heffernan from Limerick, Justin Herbert, I think, or Justin Quinlan, from Tipperary was captain. Darragh O'Neill, Pat Healy was fantastic on that team. Richard McMahon, Joe Rogers. It was a fantastic team, and I've memories of going down to Kilmallock to see matches against Middleton and Northmont, and 5 or 6 buses of students and boarders. It was just it was a fantastic team and a fantastic journey, and they ultimately went all the way and won the All Ireland Colleges, beating Pat O'Neill, DJ Carey, Adrian Ronan, all these guys were playing for St Kieran's. So that gave you a taste of it. Certainly as a second year, you wanted to make teams here and improve. And I suppose lucky enough then, we had I won 15, won Dean Ryan. There was a good bunch of players at the time. Fitzy, Conor Clancy, a heap of guys like that. And so one in 89 and one in 1990. The 2 Harties lost 2 All Ireland Colleges finals. So yeah, it was a huge thing, for many first year coming in the door to Flannans to represent the school and play in those big games. And at the time, there were big occasions, and I think that's the great thing that the players involved now saw. The Tulla game was obviously, there was a big crowd there, and it had that big game feel to it. There was a great atmosphere in Nina, the last of the Templemore match, and there'll be a huge atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And you get that, the first years and second years now are getting a taste of that, and the buzz is certainly back, as John alluded earlier, and that's great going forward.
I'd say just to mention Liz Howard, going back over the years, she was. We played in All Ireland Colleges final in Croke Park, and Liz got us into the Malahide Hotel, these were just young fellas from Flannans and that, and it was a fantastic. We were kept overnight in the Malahide Hotel. We were driven to Croke Park, and it was a fantastic occasion. And these I suppose were kind of almost forgotten over the years, but now you think back, this is what was happening at that time, and the buzz was fantastic, and coming back into Innis in a bus, and how well we were looked after, by the college and everybody.
Yeah, and it's a
huge parental involvement.
Yeah, it's a different school. Obviously the boarding school closed, and Father Brendan Maloney, I suppose, and Father Jerry Tracy before him, and the deans were kind of, and the priests obviously were synonymous with them, with Harty Cup and big days. But I'm sure Father Brendan will make his way to, to Mallow,
let's hope he doesn't cause a row
on Saturday. And let's hope he behaves himself. Exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of people that would have supported us, and I think would be delighted that the school are back. But it is a different dynamic. As I said, we don't have the borders. We're probably a bigger school numbers wise. Obviously, we're probably 1/3 girls as well. So it is a different place. But that makes it probably all the more special that we've maybe had to work harder to get back there. And there's massive credit due to Kevin, Brendan, Mike and Shane for the work that they've done, and for the players, number one, to buy into it and to give the commitment. And these guys have been in over the Christmas, they've been in over midterm breaks. They've put a savage effort in, Joe, haven't they?
Yeah, I think the striking thing for me is the buy-in from the clubs and the parents. Yeah. Traditionally down through the years, players might have gone to their club training. That's not happening anymore. There's totally focused on preparing for the Harty Cup Final. Have been all year, But I think it's probably the first Harty Pan that's within a 10-mile radius of Flannans itself, the college, which is probably shows the hotbed of hurling around the area in things like. But my own view, I think I think it's alluded already, Brendan and Kevin bring them off in first year to the Harty Cup Final to see Templemore and Coleman's below and the Gaelic grounds. I think it really sowed the seed from they came from back from that as first year buzzing. That this is what Harty hurling's about, and this is where I want to be, and fair play to the boys, and you see the other day a sheet that Brendan gave him. I think it was Richie Power wrote about Kilkenny CBS or St Kieran's CBS, and how you have to have your hurling in your hand every day. He gave a copy of that to every one of the players, let's say in second or third year, And this, you know, a lot of them still have it today. Like, you know, you can't go today without having the hurling in your hand. Like, you know, I remember, you know, Garrod and Dermot, you know, when they started off like in St Flannans, they'd be waiting for the bus in the morning and they'd have a hurley with them. And I remember a neighbour asked me one day to go to school at all, is it all hurling down there? But like, you know, the ball lights are open, like, you know, the ball lights are open again, and it really enjoys the whole thing, like, you know.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, you know, look at having Tony Kelly and Jack Brown, and, you know, Michael Donnan is doing great work as well with 15s and first years. But Brendan and Kevin, yeah, there's been an injection of young men and energy, which has really probably given the hurling side of things in school a shot in the arm. So yeah, and I think the big thing as well is that these guys are going to be better players for their clubs.
Yes.
You know, from the experience of you know what it takes to buy in. You know, at this level, because it is a high level, and the standard is high, and you know, you can't be playing these big games and dealing with the nerves and all that goes with it. So, as I said, all these guys will go back to their clubs, win, lose or draw on Sunday. I think better players and better for the experience of having been there and having been through it.
Absolutely. And just as we mentioned the parent element, John, I mean, someone referenced, I think it might have been Mike Kelly when we spoke on the preview night, that you come to Flannans most evenings, there's athletes out training, you've got the basketball, the camogie, the volleyball, all that goes on. And I guess it's important that the parents buy into it, and parents see that the school are giving back to their, as they'd see their child as well, so that there's that kind of give and take. And the likes of Joe mentioned, that then there's no problem with them bringing them to training or coming back in at 6 or 7 o'clock in an evening, because everybody's benefiting and it's a real kind of group effort.
Well, I mean, that's very true. I mean, obviously the parents send their kids in for education, but I mean, there's a much more holistic thing to it as well. You know, there's the well-being, there is the whole area of looking after yourself and being healthy and leading a good lifestyle, and all of these things are being preached by the guys who are training, not alone just the ladies last year in the camogie and all of that. Like, it's been very, very successful, and this is due to, you know, basically due to good management by young teachers or not so young teachers who are in there, they know what they're doing. The student body that they are training are, you know, very impressed with the teachers that are there, that take them on board and teach them, you know, or not teach them, but advise them on how to do things properly, how to prepare properly, and you get the rewards from that, and they do, and they do buy into this, and they are buying into it, and that's why we're in a Harty final, you know. Now, there's no guarantees that you will win, but it builds that momentum, and the next group who are coming in, we'll say, is the first years. You know, they'll be coming in on the first day with their hurleys. Where will you put your helmet? Where is the dressing room? You know, they'll be looking at the photographs on the wall, and even on the open days like that. That all matters, and it influences, and you know, and it's a positive influence, and that's to be, you know, should be carried on, and it's our tradition. And so it's the tradition in St Flannans College, and it's the traditions everywhere else, but it is a tradition, and we should look after tradition.
Yeah, and that's interesting that he makes that point, Jamesie, because I did a piece, and people can see it in this week's Clare Champion, all the way from Bahrain. The last man to lift the Harty Cup spoke to us, Ger Arthur, and I asked him about that thing of tradition, and he referenced yourself in dressing rooms as well when you were over teams, that, you know, when it came to 10 minutes to go, that if teams didn't see that Flannans were starting to go away, if Flannans were still there, he felt that the fear factor came in, that the Flannans tradition could often be that point or two extra.
Yeah, well, that was something, I suppose, that was really maybe ingrained in us, you know, when we were here, that, you know, certainly that jersey and the school's history and tradition mattered. And maybe that was coming from, you know, for Seamus Gardner, you know, for Willie Walsh, especially with that Tipperary, you know, that let's to say they didn't lack confidence and belief. And I think that was a big thing, like that, you know, you believed when you were playing with Flannans, you know, that you were going to win, or you had every chance to win. And certainly, you know, we won matches over the years that we probably had no right to win. Purely because maybe of who we were, that belief that, you know, if we kept going to the final whistle, we'd find a way to get the job done. And you were just trying to pass that on and transmit that to the players. And, you know, I was lucky enough, as I said, to be involved with, you know, with that team in 2005. I mean, we had an awful lot of really good players. You know, Jerry was a super player. You know, Seamus Hickey was on that team, James McInerney, Bernard Gaffney. Colin Ryan was probably the purest, you know, free taker and striker of a ball I think I ever saw come through the place in all my time here. Mark O'Donnell, Shane's brother, was cornerback. You know, we could keep going. Damien O'Halloran, who's teaching the Colosh now, was fantastic in midfield. You know, we had a lot of good players, but certainly, you know, I think they believed that, you know, when the game was in the melting pot, if they kept doing the right things, that tradition mattered, and that's something I think hopefully as we can maybe draw on Sunday, that listen, the lads will have that belief if they're there with 10 minutes to go, that listen, Flannans and that name matters, and it's mattered in the past, and we're top of the roll of honour, and hopefully that might be worth a couple of points for us on Saturday evening.
Absolutely. We'll press the pause button right there. Speaking of Saturday evening, we'll get talking about the game and indeed what it takes in the preparation. Joe's got the insight on that, with a young fella sitting at home at the table itching to go, no doubt. Don't go anywhere, we're back very shortly. Now you're welcome back to the second part of this week's Clare Champion Sports Chat podcast. Still here in St Flannans, looking ahead to that Harty Cup Final. I mentioned just before the break the preparation that goes into it for Saturday, and we can get a unique insight, I guess, now from maybe the Cahill household in Corofin. What will the conversation be like around the kitchen table, do you think, on Friday evening?
Well, I suppose, Dermot himself, I suppose, quite by nature, he likes to
takes after the father then.
Yeah, he does, yeah. He likes to prepare himself, I suppose, and you'd never think, last year he played Clare Minor, you'd never think going out that Sunday mornings that he was going to play in front of maybe 20 or 30,000 people. He just takes it by nature. He's always been like that, but I know he's very focused on it. I know from the very first day he came in here, all he wanted to do was play for Flannans number one, get on the teams, which he has done successfully, and I know he has massive respect for the management team in place. He really, really respects them, but I'm sure, it comes Saturday, the bus journey down, I suppose, they'll probably hit him at that stage, but he's well capable of, doing well, he was very good against Tulla and probably not as prominent against Templemore, but that's the way it goes,
Yeah, and he'll be getting the tips, no doubt, from the older brother as well, will he?
He probably will, yeah. He's getting good advice off him, solid advice, now he is, but sure, Grower played here, I think he made a Harty team at 15 and won one game in them 3 years, and Dermot is coming in now after winning 5, it just shows you what can happen, things just run your way for you,
Yeah, and I think as well, Joe, the fact that we'll say, King Galvin and Tony Butler and so many of them were involved with the minors last year.
That's right.
That they, those guys were playing in front of big crowds and in big games, and that has to be a huge help in terms of, how you handle the day and how you handle the crowd and the build up and all the rest of it. And I think that'll stand to us at the weekend.
Yeah.
Clare had 7 guys. Flannans, that 7 guys that lined out against Cork last year in the minor in June last year, and CBC have 2 players from that in the Cork setup,
Okay.
So
it's all about handling that. I guess you have a unique insight in that. Well, John, even go back to 2009 and everything that must have been leading up to that, a first 21 final, all those kind of things. How would you manage that morning, or how would you kind of maybe take the occasion out of a player's head?
Well, I mean, you have to take it very calmly. I think there's some guys are going to be, you're going to have guys who are going to be a little bit hyper. You have other guys in and you wish that they had a small little bit of hype in them. There's so many different characters. Guys have their own routine. Some might want to walk around in pairs and have a chat. Others might just want to sit down and maybe read a magazine or a paper or something. There are many different ways. I mean, they're all individuals, but they come together as a team. And you have to respect, that you can't expect 20 guys, who are in a panel to all behave in the same way. They all have their own little isms that they want to do. They might want to take a walk around the grounds, wherever you are, wherever the bus pulls in. They might want to listen to their music or whatever, they all have their different things to do. And that's all part of what they're comfortable with, and if they're comfortable with that, that's, I think, is, that's very, very important, and that they're capable of doing that. And it brings an ease and it brings a calmness, and I think that the less hype that you have, the more things are organised, that everything, the bus is on time, the players turn up on time, the warm-up is done properly and everybody is ready for the warm-up and everything, and then you're ready then for the last 10 minutes, the few minutes before you're left in the dressing room, and when you're getting getting ready for that to hit the ground running, and that everything is right and your mind is right, and then that's your focus. And if you're not good enough at the end of the day, you have to put up your hand and say they were better than us, and if you do your best, that's all you can do. You might say maybe this was a point that we should have got, but that happens in every game. But honesty, honesty throughout the field, doing simple things well, because it's the simple things that make things so easy. Nobody, I think, going off on mad solo runs and stuff like that, letting the ball in fast and early into the forwards, and hoping then that the guys like Mr. Cahill's son here and those, that they will be able to pick up, that fast ball that's coming in, and that I believe that if the faster ball comes in to the Flannans forwards, they seem to thrive in it. I saw some of the earlier matches, and I thought they were playing maybe a little bit too lateral rather than direct, and the ball wasn't getting in fast enough. And I think they've changed it up quite a bit in the last couple of games I've seen, that the ball is much more direct, and I think they're having greater success with that. Now, there's nothing wrong with a short passing game if you need it, but I think they profit more in a more direct approach.
And just, James, to be ready for a day like that, a lot of people have referenced Flannans' run to the final, that the Tulla game was, good and hardy for 45 minutes and they pulled away, but I think every other game before that there was only a couple of points in it, so they've, they're not coming in under this false sense of security. They've been to the well and they've come out fighting.
Absolutely, and even the Tulla game, I mean, we were, we didn't play particularly well in the first half. I mean, the goals probably came, flattered us a little bit at half time, and you felt maybe that, the longer we left the Tulla in the game, the more dangerous it was going to become, I suppose. But we, I think we were the better team. We had the better players, but we had to go to the well the last day, and Templemore certainly had a patch before half time where they had 4 or 5 wides, and had they taken some of those chances, we could have been a spot of bother. But I felt the longer the game went on, we're in super physical condition. I mean, we've a really athletic team. Conor Haggerty, Oisin O'Donnell, King Galvin will go up and down the field, all day, and I think that's the key thing. The longer we stay in this game, the better I like our chances. And
we need to be in the last 15 minutes. I firmly believe that. We have the confidence is there now to see it out. And just touching on John's point there, I think for people travelling to the match on Saturday, the last 2 Harty finals that we played in Mallow were both delayed by 20 minutes start time due to the crowd coming in, which is an interesting thing now for people to know. That the last 2 have been held up for the last 20 minutes, for 20 minutes because of the congestion coming into the grounds.
And I guess the occasion, Joe, that it is like the first one since 07 and all that, like there's going to be a big Clare crowd there.
I
suppose that hits it in 2 factors. One, Jamesie mentioned there, the physical condition. And I suppose when you go through that Flannans team, you're ticking, minor. They've got that inter-county physique and conditioning. And number 2 then, the experience of if the game is delayed, it won't throw them off in terms of being ready for it.
Ready for it, yeah. But I think they've been through, a lot of them have been through it last year, and they're well aware of what the day is about, and I think when they go down on Saturday, I can get it. 2 years ago, I was involved in the Clare under 15. He had changed back from 16 down to under 15, and I remember at the time, we were down to play on the Saturday in May in the tournament, and we had a full forward line. I remember clearly at the time we had a full forward line of Shane Meehan and Dermot and Sean Ronan, and I remember Kevin O'Callaghan now, who was now the top man in Cork, to go with Frank Murphy. He was involved in North Cork at the time, and at half time we were 3-8 to 1-4 up at half time, and I remember that Kevin O'Callaghan coming across me afterwards asking who the guy was, Shane Meehan. He just had earmarked out, he was actually outstanding on the day for us. But a lot of that team, like Conor Haggerty, King Galvin would have played that day, we got two games on the main pitch, and then we were beaten in the last minute goal in the semi-final in the lower pitch. So and I know they play Cornivera there this year. They played a game against it there as well. So the venue itself, I think, will be okay for them.
Yeah, they'll probably need that fast pitch. So is that a concern? Like Mallow can be quite.
It can be quite heavy. It can be quite heavy. Now there is plenty of width in it, and all that. And I think a lot of the Flannans players they thrive in space, But I think the pitch will be heavy, if the conditions, the weather conditions.
Yeah, and obviously the storm is kind of coming in, and we are kind of playing, I suppose a running game to a large extent, and I think we have to adapt to the conditions. There's going to be times when maybe we have to be a bit more direct. But look at the lads, as I said, Brendan and Kevin and Mike and Shane would have put plenty of thought into that.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, 2 finals are different, and they often don't work out the way the way we might envisage. Yeah. But certainly, the team are in great condition. And as I said, I think we'll, if we're thereabouts in the last 10-15 minutes, I think it plays into our hands.
And I think I think John's referenced there as well about the style of play the Flannans are playing. I think you have to play you know, to win the game. And I think a lot of these players come back to their club where it goes orthodox 15 on 15. You know, the sweeper system is played in Flannans, and all the games they play a sweeper system, and that's exposing them to that sweeper system. But you know, they come back to their clubs, and a lot of clubs just go 15 on 15. So I think they're getting both into the deal there. Like, you know, they're beginning to learn that, you know, we can play a 15 on 15 and we can play a sweeper system.
Yeah, and I guess it's encouraging when Jamesie mentions having to adapt. We saw it in the Tulla game,
yes,
that it was 15 on 15 for a while, and
yes.
probably then Galvin dropped back a bit more in the Tempton Moor game. So I suppose both guns are in the arsenal there, aren't
yes,
they?
exactly. And I suppose the traitor Jack Cahill next Saturday, like,
yeah.
you know, that will have to be addressed as well. I'm sure the management team will have something there as well.
Yeah, and CBC, I'm sure, will have looked at us as well,
yes,
and you know, have their own plans in terms of, you know, curtailing Keane's influence.
Yes.
You know, they're going to man-mark Dermot, you know. So I mean, that's all in the mix. But look, at finals often take on a life of their own, Derek. And you know, I played in two, and you know, they were both low-scoring games. I think 9 points in the first one was the match, and 10 points in the second. And they were both, I wouldn't say both were played in you know, ideal conditions.
Yes.
But we probably need to put more than 10 points on the board on Saturday to get a result.
Yeah, they probably have the firepower to do that, Joe, don't they?
I think so. Yes. I think so. Like, you know, you'd be expecting, you know, all the forwards to contribute something, like, you know. But I think crucially that the work rate is there on the forwards, that they don't allow the ball. You know, Cahill is only as good as, you know, they have a guy centre forward, Niall Hartnett. He's the younger brother of Brian Hartnett on the Coxine panel, like, and you know, he marked Jason from Middleton in the semi-final, and he ran him aground like that evening, like, you know. And so, like, you know, the Flannans forwards, you know, while they're scoring, the work rate down, the turnovers have to happen, like, you know, because, you know, we don't need quality ball going into that full forward line. You know, they have Robbie Cotter inside as well, like, and you know, Dara Burke is in there. Like, these are three good forwards, like, you know, and that's Flannans have to be aware of that, like.
Yeah, and the bar is high, Derek. I mean, the standard, like, it is not easy, whether it's 15, Dean Ryan, you know, or Harty. I mean, you know, whether it's Arscoil Reach or whether it's De La Salle from Waterford or Thurles CBS or Middleton, you know, or CBC. You know, you have to have the work done.
Yeah,
you
don't get to Harty finals, like, you know, just being a poor team, like, you know, you have to be good.
Yeah, and those guys were there. You know, those guys were there last year. And I know there isn't maybe a huge turnover. There isn't a huge amount of the same team.
There's four of the five from last year.
Exactly, but certainly, you know, the fact that those guys, you know, were there last year, you know, they won't want to come back with their tails between their legs a second time, and that's, you know, so it's going to be a big challenge. But it was never going to be anywhere, irrespective of the opposition. And as I said, the lads have prepared really well. Mocks this week are done now. You know, they've a day without exams tomorrow. The King Galvin, and you know, a few more of the lads, King Broderick and guys like that are you know, doing their leaving cert. So yeah, the focus now is just, as I said, on getting the minds right and getting the bodies fresh and rested. And it was no harm maybe this week as well that the mocks maybe took a bit of the focus off the games. They had to worry a bit about the books, but.
Did they worry about them though? Is that the
yeah, well, I was supervising exams today, and Galvin and particularly seem to be writing furiously, you know, so there's plenty of ink on the paper. So it's about that balance, I think, you know, off the pitch as well. And I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like, you know, their education, you know, is the priority, and we always see these guys going on to do well on the academic side of things. And I think a lot of the guys that are playing this year, you know, are smart, intelligent guys, and they're able to find that balance, and that's really important.
A lot of these guys have done transition year as well, you see, so they have, you know, got that extra year, whereas before years ago, you see, they had. Pardon?
They were coaxed into doing transition.
I'm sticking with what I said. So it has made a big difference. You know, there's that extra year, and there's that extra maturity, and you know, they know how to handle things that little bit better. You know, you have a few older heads, and you know, when the storm is coming, these guys have the ability to handle that in many, many cases, and hopefully they will be able to do it again. So, you know, that extra few 6 months of maturity makes a huge difference at this age level, and you know, and I think it will be a big help at the weekend.
Absolutely. We'll leave the final word to yourself on this, John, because as we were walking up, myself and Joe have to thank all the staff here for the hospitality, a lovely cup of tea above in the staff room, but you can't but be drawn to all the pictures in the corridors all the way down along, and I just get the feeling it would mean so much to St Flannans to have to find an extra spot on that wall on Monday morning next.
Oh God, we'll build a wall if we need to find a spot. I mean, there's absolutely no problem with that. We have loads of space, and you know, it's quite a while since, you know, a generation have gone by without seeing it, and it brings that buzz back again, as I said, going back early on in the interview, and it brings it back, and it gets everybody involved. It gets the whole student body. Young fellas who would never pick up a hurley, but they get drawn into this, and Some of them might never, pick up a hurley or anything like that, but they get drawn into it and they get interested into it, and it influences their lives. It influences what happens afterwards, and it's a very, very positive, and like it's nothing worse than seeing young fellas hanging around, walking around, leaning up against a wall, doing nothing. These guys are out there, they're having fun, they go to college, then they meet other guys and that, and it's all part of their life and growing up, and it's all about being positive and that. So I think it's fantastic, and they're going to be looked after well, and they're going to be Clare minors. Some of them are Clare minors already. Some of them will be moving on into Fitzgibbon Cups and all of this, and they have another 4 or 5 years of education ahead of them, and that's going to be a huge, playing with fellas from other counties and everything, and that brings its own learning experience as well.
Yeah, and hopefully all that starts on Saturday evening. So we have to leave it.
I think it started already.
Absolutely. John, Jamesie and Joe, thanks so much for joining us. Keep an eye on the Clare Champion website and Twitter feed on Saturday afternoon. We'll be keeping you posted with every puck of the ball down in Mallow, and hopefully bringing you the winning reaction from a St Flannans perspective as well. And looking back on it on next week's show. So much more to come before then, but we'll talk to you next Tuesday evening.